I'm going to discuss this part mainly for the people who are not familiar with web protocols and how things are done that way. It's not hard, it's just something new that a lot of people don't know. If you do not do this module, if you don't understand what's going on here, then you will not understand anything else of the course. So it's not much and you simply have to go through it. Most people are actually happy after they've done it. Is there life without Fiddler? Well, the straight answer is no. You can get it at fiddlerdo.com, and it is nothing more than a trace tool. But the nice part of Fiddler is that it can also trace SSL. Netmon could have traced HTTP too, but once it is SSL, it cannot trace it. There are other analyzers like IE HTTP headers, and that one hooks into the DLLs that are in your system. But Fiddler is independent of the browser and it acts as a man-in-the-middle attack and it traces all your messages. If all else fails, then you could in theory make a network trace with Wireshark or Netmon, but that will only work in your own developer environment. In a production environment, the security officer is very, very unlikely to ever give you the private keys of the servers, and you will need those. Web traffic goes over a TCP session. A TCP session, the default port is typically port 80, but all ADFS traffic must go over an SSL session. So that means an HTTPS. Offloaders, well, that's okay as long as they continue with HTTPS. It must be HTTPS, otherwise it simply will not work. Now, something specific for HTTP is that it is stateless. Take a look back at the old protocols, Telnet, FTP, things like that, SMTP. You would make a session that is a SYN flag, an ACK SYN flag back, and another ACK, and then you have a session and you will remain in that session. If you have to do authentication, you do it once for the whole session and it's done. Not with HTTP, that is stateless. Each request should be a self-containing unit and it should give you the reply. So that means that if you do authentication for HTTP, every request must have something in there that tells you who you are. And that is what they call a session cookie in general. It contains your logon session state. This is nice actually, because that way it's easier to use load balancers. One request goes to one server, another request goes to another server if they fail over or if you need to do load balancing. It's nice, but it has disadvantages too. Okay, next step is HTTP is a stop-wait protocol. And it is very simple. You ask for a page and you wait until you get the page back. If there are two references to other pages, you can start two new sessions and ask for two pages at the same time. But if you stick to one TCP session, you send in one request and back comes one response. Okay, the request, but also the response contains headers. So that is a header name, ... and then the header value, next header, an empty line, and then you get the data. Data, whatever is in there, depends on the content type. So in the header there's a content type, and in the data there's the data. Most of the time you're used to HTML, but there can be actually anything in there because there are many extensions to wrap things in there. In the header, one of the fields is the command. So that can be a get, give me this page, or it can be a post, is basically to give me this page. It contains a URL, the well-known fully qualified DNS domain name, and then a path, and then a file name. But after that, we can also write parameters. We'll start with a question mark, and then parameter 1 equals value 1, parameter 2 equals another value. Originally, if a page wasn't there because you moved the web server or whatever, it was possible to say 302 redirect, the page is not here at this moment, go and get it somewhere else. Well, that's a nice trick that you can use if you want to authenticate. No, you're not authenticated, go somewhere else for now. One of the other very infamous, famous, whatever you want, fields is the cookie field. A cookie is a field in the header, so there are limits in the size and they are browser dependent and service pack within the browser. So there's no real size that you can rely on. It is set by a server, so I ask a server for a page and I get a response with the page. But in the headers, they can set a cookie. The next time I go to that server, my browser will send the cookie to that same server. How does it do that? It will take a look at the domain. If the host name is the same, then so far so good, I may have to send it. Then within the host name, it looks at the path. If it is to the same path, the same subdirectory, then I'll send it. If there are two applications next to each other, then the path will be different and one will get the cookie that it had set itself, but the other will not. There are a little bit extra things in a cookie attribute: secure, valid until, etc., etc. And one of these things is secure. If a cookie is marked as secure, it will not be sent over an HTTP session. That's why HTTPS is required for ADFS. So here's our last slide in the Web 101. Cookies have a limit, and cookies are between the server and the web browser. If I want to get some data from the web browser to the federation server, I could maybe do it in query parameters. In a redirect, that will work. But if it's too much, it will not fit in a header, and we need to put it in the body, in the data of the HTTP request. So what they do, they make what I call a self-submitting post. And that is a form. In the form is actually some JavaScript. And the JavaScript says, send it to the other server as a post. Well, this was it. You will see where you will need this. And without this, there was no way you were ever going to understand the rest of this module.